Good day, everyone. Eric from Helps, YouTube Live. Good to have you here on November 4th, 2025. Hope everyone's getting used to daylight savings time going away. Appreciated the extra hour of sleep. I don't know about you. Um, I, my name is Eric. I've been an attorney now for 46 years, the founder of Helps. And what Helps is a national law firm that represents seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay. And what we do, our main purpose is to protect them from debt collector harassment. There's a federal law called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, passed back in 1978. Provides one of the provisions is that if you're represented by an attorney, debt collectors can no longer call or send you demand letters anymore. They have to leave you alone. And when people find out about Helps, they enroll in Helps. We send a letter to the creditors you owe money to. You get peace come back to your life. You don't have to worry about the creditors hounding you or bothering you anymore. And our second mission is to educate seniors how they can maintain their financial independence. So if you're a senior or disabled person or struggling with debt, you might want to listen to what we talk about today. Now, a lot of this stuff you're not going to hear anywhere else. Unfortunately, there's almost a concerted effort by debt collectors, and for companies that even help debt collectors, help people that owe debt. They don't tell them the complete information. They don't tell them how their income is protected, how their Social Security is protected, how it's protected in their bank accounts, and other things that you're going to learn on this channel. So thanks for participating. You can put your questions in the chat feature, and I'll try to answer them. I think the topic I said today was why something about like why we need to ask some basic questions, when you call. And this came up because I talked to a guy today from Georgia who had apparently seen one of our YouTube videos. And he wanted to ask some basic questions, I think about a lawsuit. And when I tell people when they call, and I try to instruct our paralegals and other attorneys in our firm that that we can answer some questions, but we can answer your questions, but we need to ask a few at first. Now, the reason we need to ask a few questions is if we don't know the background information, or if we don't know some of the other things, and we just answer your question, you'll hang up and you won't have the complete story. You won't realize what can be done to help you. And so at first when he started, I asked him some questions, and why do you need to know that? And I explained, well, I essentially what I just said. In order to help you, I need to know some more basic information. Otherwise, if I just answer these questions, you're going to be out. You may get the wrong impression, or I may give you the wrong information. And then the debt was just his. He explained to me that he had $100,000 in debt, and that 25,000 was his, 75,000 was his wife's. But he was the only one being sued, and he was just worried about his situation. And I needed to ask some questions about his wife, and then he didn't like that idea, and finally he just kind of simply hung up the phone. I mean, I told him, I said, in order to, and what I did suggest, or I wanted to tell him, I said, and if you have any doubts about talking to us, listen to our videos, look at our website, check us out until you're confident that we know what we're talking about. We're going to be able to help you, okay? Because I don't want to talk to anyone who doesn't feel comfortable on answering our questions. We're not too nosy, but there's a reason we need to ask these questions. So I'll give you an example. In his case, his only income was Social Security. His wife was still working, and he had $25,000 in debt. It sounded like his wife may have had $100,000 in debt, and he may be part of that debt. Okay, they had a home in Georgia that was worth about $500,000, but they only owed $20,000 on the home. And I started to ask some questions, and he didn't like the questions. Cut off the. But let me tell you why I needed to ask the questions. Okay, so first off, in Georgia, there's a homestead exemption of, I think it's it's about 21,000 for a single person, a little bit over 40,000 for a couple. And I needed to know if his wife got sued, or if he got sued, could they get a judgment? And then I needed to know their respective ages to be able to tell him, Well, if they get a judgment, they're not going to take your home. And if you predecease your wife, then your wife's going to, get that home free from any judgment. I didn't get a chance to explain that to him. And I was going to be able to get down to answer his question. I think his question essentially, should I defend the lawsuit? And he owed the money. He probably didn't need to defend it, but I was going to give him all the extra information he needed so that he would know what his rights are, including maybe the right to file bankruptcy. But I never got to answer him the question. So when you call helps, if you do have questions, we don't, we're not nosy. Everything we have is confidential. We save the information. Sometimes people call us 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times before they decide to enroll in helps. Okay, because I want you to feel absolutely confident about what we do. But if I don't get the complete information and I just give you answer your question, then you hang up. You may not realize, oh my gosh, I could have done this, that, or the other thing. I never realized that, and so that's why we ask these questions. Okay, it's not because I'm nosy. You know, we don't. All we ask when we want to know your first and last name, your phone number. We don't even ask for your email address until later if we need to send you an email. We need to know the state where you live in, your age. I need to know your age. There's different, advice we might give someone that's 62 or someone that's 88 would be completely different. Need to know if you're married, if you're buying a home or renting. Why do I need to know you're buying a home? Because, there could be an issue there that could come up that we could help you with. Are you buying a car? Do you own a car? Has anyone that sued you? Does anyone have a judgment? Approximately how much you owe? How much does the wife owe? How much does the husband owe? How much do you owe together? Things like that. Do you owe any income taxes? Because we help people with taxes. Do you owe any student loans? We can help with that. So that's why we ask these questions. Okay. I'm not, like I said, I'm not being nosy. And although I get nervous sometimes when I ask people's age, I always feel people are going to say, why do you need how old I am? But most people don't say that. I think they assume that that's a good question. Like I said, I need to know if someone is really, really old or a younger senior or an older senior, because what we tell them might depend on that. Okay. And we're glad to explain why, always. So I talked to someone today, and I'll just go over this. I think they were from South Carolina. They didn't have a whole lot of debt, somewhere in the $5,000 to $10,000 range. Age was 73. They were buying a home, and income was only like $1,200 a month, and the house payment was $400 a month, a little bit over that. But they only owed $40,000 on the home. They had a car payment of $200 a month, a little bit more than that, and they owed like I forget what they owed on the car, but it wasn't a huge amount of money on the car. So I looked up the home value when I asked for the address. Sometimes I ask for the address, not because I'm being snoopy, because I can type in the address and we can get on a website called Zillow or any other number of websites that will give us the value of the home. And sometimes the value of the home might be more than what you think it is. Okay. Usually it's more than what you think it is. It could be less, but usually it's more. And that could factor into the advice we give you. For example, in this person, she had such a small amount of income, $1,200, time she paid for her house payment and her car payment and car insurance. She was lucky to have $400 or $500 to live on for the rest of the month, which was really tight. So the reason I want to know the value of the home is I was going to send her an email and look that she could look at maybe possibly looking at what's called a reverse mortgage. She had kids that she loved, but the kids weren't able to help her out any. Now, I don't sell reverse mortgages. A lot of people I talk to don't know anything about a reverse mortgage, or they've heard something bad. Well, reverse mortgage isn't for everyone, but for some people it can be an answer to prayer. And so that's the only reason I asked those questions of hers. Um, um, she was being sued by Mobile on a credit card, and she had used the credit card in order to help her mom or someone driving to and from the doctor and ran up the credit card bill, and so she is sued for $2,500. Um, and what she wanted to do is she wanted to get a home loan. Now, the reason she wanted to get a home loan was to be able to, fix up the house and pay off her car, which she didn't owe very much on. And I explained to her that, well, you can do that, but if they get a judgment, the home loan, you might have a hard time getting the home loan unless they paid off the car from the home loan, and that would leave less money available to you. But then I said, if you get a home loan, then you're still going to have the house payment. And she said, well, I'm going to pay off the car and that'll be less. I said, okay, that makes sense. So in other words, that's another reason why we ask these questions, to be able to give people some guidance, give them some information that they need in order to make right decisions. I did tell her she didn't have to worry about the homestead exemption in South Carolina was like $76,000. Uh, so no one's going to take her home. That wasn't an issue. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat feature, and then I've got questions that people have asked helps or have written down. Okay. So this person calls us from Michigan, and he gets $1,600 in Social Security and a pension of $320 odd. He has credit card debt and some medical debt, and it says that he's not currently struggling with debt. But then the next sentence says he is being harassed by creditors day in and day out. So maybe he is struggling a little bit. Okay. He found us on YouTube, and it says he's ready to enroll. He looked at some of our videos. Okay. Has mostly collection payday loans, has 3 loans. Okay. And so what I wanted to talk about is he had some loans with his credit union. So I want to talk about credit unions and debt for a minute. Okay. If you owe money to a credit union and you bank with the credit union, we're going to tell you probably need to leave the credit union, because if you don't pay the credit union, they're going to do one of 2 things. They're either going to cut you off, or they may try to set off money from your bank account to which Social Security is deposited or other money to pay for their loan. Because unbeknownst to you, when you got the loan with the credit union, you gave them permission to do that. Okay, you gave them permission to take money out of your account if you owe them a debt. And another thing about a credit union, let's say you had a car loan with a credit union, and you also had a credit card loan. Let's say you owed $5,000 on the car and it was only worth $4,000, but you owed $5,000 on the credit card. Well, the credit unions have what's called a cross-collateralization agreement. So in other words, when you got the credit card and when you got the car loan, the loan statement says that if you have another debt with this credit union, both those debts are going to be secured by the car. So if you stopped paying the credit card debt and kept paying the car loan, they probably wouldn't do anything, except that when you went to get the title, they're not going to give you the title, because they're going to say, we have a lien on the credit card debt you haven't been paying us. So what do you do in that situation? Well, a couple things. Let's say you don't have a debt, don't have a loan that's secured by a car or something like that with the credit union, but you're not going to pay the credit union, you bank there. Well, you're going to need to change to a different bank. Okay. In this instance, we told the person, go to a different bank. You can do that pretty quick. We send them an email how to get their Social Security, get deposited at a different bank. Don't give us don't have us help send a letter out to the credit union until the money is going into this new bank account you're going to get. If we did it earlier, they might be tempted to take money out of your account. We don't want to let them know that you're not going to be paying them. So you'd want to change to a different account, and that's easy to do. We have an email how to do that. You can do it online, over the internet. You call them on the phone, or you can do it in person. And you can usually get your Social Security changed really fast. It's not going to take long. Okay. So it looks like the guy enrolled with us, and he was happy to get this information. Okay. Um, yeah, Wendy says, I just wish I would have heard of help sooner. They will help and give you hope. Yeah, that's what we're here for. That's why we always ask our clients, or people, to subscribe to our channel and, share what helps does with others. And we always ask you to do that because a lot of people need this help and don't realize it's available. Okay. So I talked to someone else earlier today from Alabama whose husband died a little bit ago, and a month or so ago. And she got a letter from one of her creditors asking her, you know, if her husband was in probate. They owned a home together. It wasn't worth a whole lot, but they owned it together with survivorship rights. And I told her, well, when you don't need to go through probate. Okay, that's the only asset you had was the home, and you owned it with your husband. She said yes. Well, under the terms of the of the deed, you owned it with survivorship rights. That means when he died, the home automatically is in your name. You don't need to go to the county or change anything. It's in your name only. Okay, because he's dead, he's in heaven, and you don't need to worry about it. It's in your name only. And then she was worried about the creditor that was calling, and I told her, I said, well, what you need to do is take a copy of your death certificate, of his, not your death certificate, his death certificate, staple it to the bill, and then write on there that he's passed away, no probate. And then they're going to close the file, and then you won't hear from them anymore. But she was worried that she was going to have to go through some probate proceeding. But where you own it jointly with survivorship rights, you don't have to do that. That's one reason they have deeds are set up that way. So you don't have to go through anything. It would go automatically to her. Okay. Um, so this person contacts us from New York, and they give their name. I'm 61 years old and retired. I started getting collection notices in the mail regarding medical debt. Can someone please give me a call? So I'm sure we're going to call this person, and we're going to explain to them, you're retired, you're getting retirement, probably not getting Social Security yet because you're not 62. Uh, your retirement's going to be protected. Uh, you don't need to pay those medical debts. You can if you want, but you don't need to. And if you want to enroll in helps, we can enroll you. We're going to send a letter to the creditors you owe money to. They're going to have to leave you alone. They're going to have to communicate with us and not you. Okay? So she's got nothing to worry about. And then when she gets her Social Security, that'll be protected as well. So this person contacts us. Um, I think it's from Maine. It says, I've contacted you several times in the past. I'm 75. I collect $1,300 a month in Social Security. I'm at my wit's end. That might be a good topic for one of our YouTube videos. This is senior at wit's end with debt, something like that. I have about $8,500 in credit card debt. After he's done talking to us, he will no longer be at his wit's end. And if you're at your wit's end with debt issues, keep listening to you. I promise you, we're going to solve that problem of being at your wit's end. Okay. I don't know what to do. I don't know how much you will charge me. Well, we'll talk about that in a second. 1 out of 5 or 6 of our clients get our help for free. Charge is minimal. It says my rent is $1,700, $1,750 a month. I have my fiance helping me pay the rent. Yeah, he couldn't do that on his own, that's for sure. And also with it, electricity, food, but I need help. Well, that's what we're about. HELP stands for Help Eliminate Legal Problems for Seniors. I don't want to have to drive to the courthouse when they start suing me. Please answer me. What do I do? Well, there's no guarantee they're going to sue you. And if they do sue you, you're not going to need to go to the courthouse. So let me explain. So this guy lives in, looks like Maine. His only income is Social Security, which means it's protected. No one can take it. even if you get sued and they got a judgment against you. Well, first off, you don't need to go to court if you owe them money. They can get a judgment against you under a law passed in um, 2012. There's a rule that tells banks that if they get a writ of garnishment, they're to look at your bank account, and if federal benefits deposited in there, like Social Security, they're going to take the amount that you get each month times that times two, and automatically protect that sum. So this guy, we're going to tell him you get $1,300 in Social Security. That means $2,600 in your bank account is protected automatically from garnishment, even if money came in there from another source. Okay, so the bank doesn't have to determine where their money came from, except the federal portion. And if twice they times that times two, that amount is protected, even if money in the account came from another source. So are you going to get sued? You might not. It doesn't matter if you do. If you owe the money, you don't go to court. They can eventually get a judgment. But like I said, what can they do? They can try to garnish your account, but if you keep it less than twice the amount of your Social Security, in this guy's case, less than $2,600, they can't take anything. Now, if you happen to have more than that in there, you can file a challenge to garnishment or claim an exemption. The court would order that money returned. So the whole purpose of HELPS is when we represent our clients that are seniors or younger, it's not just a one-time thing. We represent you literally forever. So if you ever have a question or concern, you pick up the phone and you call. Now, why is it forever? Well, because, if you enroll in HELPS today, and then maybe 6 months, a year from now, 2 years from now, the creditor might turn it over to a different collection agency. And you might get a new notice from a new collection agency. Well, we don't want you being hounded by that new collection agency. We want you to call us on the phone so we can send a letter out to that new debt collector. Okay. Now you might get sued a year or 2 or 3 years down the road. We want to be there so that you can get us a copy of the lawsuit, and then we're going to send a letter to the attorney who sued you, letting them know that your income is protected. We're going to call you on the phone, let you know why you don't need to go to court. We're going to send you information on why your income is protected, and remind you about the protected nature of your bank account and answer your questions. So that's why we will represent our clients ongoing. Now, as far as the cost, it's minimal. The way HELPS is designed now, normally you pay something for an amount for 2 years and another amount for 2 years, and after that it's free. Most would be $40 for 24 months, $20 for 24 months, free thereafter. Or it might be less than that. It could be $30 for 24 months, $15 for 24 months, and then free thereafter. Or $20 for 24 months, $10 for 24 months, or free thereafter, based on your income. Okay? We make it work for people. Okay? We don't want you to worry. And the payment won't begin till 30 or 60 days in the future. In other words, when we sign people up, we do it over the phone. Okay? You might call us 2, 3, 4, or 5 times before you enroll. And when you decide to enroll, I'll click a button and I'll keep you on the phone, and you'll get an email that says, "Welcome to HELPS." That confirms you're a member of HELPS, has our contact information, address, phone number, email addresses. It gives instructions how to get us the collectors. All we need is the name of the collector, the address, and the account number. We don't need the balance. Okay? It's that easy. Okay, so this person contacts us from Nevada, and what do they say? We think we need to file bankruptcy. We just read about HELPS and decided to contact you to determine the best course of action. We are married. My spouse is 82 and I'll be 77 next month. We're struggling with debt. We're in a debt consolidation, but it costs so much every month. We don't have enough for the ever climbing prices of groceries. My husband is stressed to the max. Can you help? That'd be another good topic for one of our YouTube videos. Stressed to the max with debt. And we tell you, we don't want you to be stressed. We don't want Richard to be stressed. He's 82. Before I started HELPS, I probably filed between 30 and 40,000 bankruptcies, a whole lot. And HELPS was started in 2012. I started HELPS because most seniors didn't need to file bankruptcy. They couldn't afford to file bankruptcy. Now, why didn't they need to file bankruptcy? Because their income was protected. State law protected their assets, and even if they had assets over an amount of the exemption for the state, it was not the practice of consumer judgment creditors to go after your home, your car, or your other assets. Even if you have equity in those, if they're worth more than what the state allows you to keep, they simply don't do it for a lot of different reasons. And I'd go into a bankruptcy hearing and I'd see a couple sitting there, might be 88 and 77, next to an attorney that filed bankruptcy. And I thought in my head, and I know all the other attorneys waiting for their bankruptcy hearings would say, why is this attorney in here with this older couple? Didn't he tell them that they didn't need to be here? Okay. And sometimes the trustee would say that to the attorney. He said, why'd you file bankruptcy for this couple? No one could do anything to them. Usually they didn't, because they got paid a little fee for doing the hearing. But and then it says they're in debt consolidation. Well, if you've heard me at all, you'll know what I'll say about that. If you're in debt settlement or debt management, the question I have for you is, when you enrolled with them, did they tell you that your income was protected and you didn't need their help? If they didn't tell you that, you weren't given complete information. Why don't they tell you that? Well, if they would have told you that, you wouldn't have enrolled with them. They wouldn't be making money off you. Okay? You don't need debt management or debt settlement. See, almost half of seniors, like 48% of seniors, are classified as economically vulnerable. It means their income is less than 200% of the federal poverty line. Okay? And the older you get, the higher the percentage of seniors that are in that category of economically vulnerable. And a high percentage of those owe debt that they struggle with. Okay? So that's a scoop on that. I mean, the seniors just don't need to file bankruptcy. I mean, you could. There's a I'm not scared to refer someone to file bankruptcy when it could make sense for them, but it's not that often that it does. Okay? So this person contacts us from Oregon, age is 63, gets 1,630 in Social Security, renting where he lives, and he has 11,000 in debt. Okay, they were referred to us by another law firm. They said that the law firm told her they could sue her for her debt and could ruin her credit. Well, maybe, maybe not. Lawsuits and judgments don't appear on credit reports anymore. So if you've had negative entries on your credit because of not paying debt, it won't be because of a lawsuit or a judgment. It'll be because of missing the payment before that. It says one of her credit cards are through her current credit union. The law firm advised her to open a bank account with a new bank and have her Social Security deposit in the new bank account, which is good for them to tell her that. And we told them that she would want to make sure that her Social Security is safely being deposited into her new account before she gives us that information if she enrolls and helps to send a cease and desist letter. And we sent her some emails about helps in what we do. We've got about 400 or 500 preloaded emails on a sundry topics that help seniors that we send to people. Remember, that's our mission is to protect you from collector harassment. Our second mission is to educate seniors how they can maintain their financial independence, and that's the reason we have this YouTube live video every Tuesday and Thursday, every Monday through Thursday. Sorry about that. Used to be just Tuesday and Thursday. Now it's 4 days a week. So she changed to a new bank account. She got a new debit card. We explained to her what the fees were. Want to know, will she receive a hard copy with our contact information? Yes. When we enroll people, you get an email, but also we send a letter with some other stuff that you'll get in the mail. Um, can she give us the credit card information over the phone? Well, we prefer to have it written. You can do it by text, email, mail. Okay. All we need is the name, address, and account number. Now, why do we not? We can get it over the phone. Maybe if you just have one, or if you're really not very savvy on the internet, it will help you that way. But it's nice to have it over the phone. That way, less chance for there to be an error in sending the notice. Sometimes if we do that, and then people say, "Well, I'm still getting a call from this place," you know, if we have it in writing, then we'll know that we got it from you. Sometimes people might forget to give us one and think they gave it to us, but if we get it in writing, then we know for sure. But once again, when you enroll in helps, you don't have to give us the creditors all at once. You can dribble them in. Okay, you can give us one day, 3 the next day, 5 next week. It doesn't matter. And obviously, if you get a new notice you forgot about someone or a new debt collector, you can send that in anytime in the future. And the whole purpose of helps is if you have a question or you're worried or you're scared, you pick up the phone and you call, no matter how often. So this all happened in early October. And then she called us, it looks like yesterday, and enrolled. She texted the information. We went to verify that we got it. We didn't got it. She texted it to the wrong number. So we corrected it and confirmed we received and completed all the information. She was very happy. The enrollment helps. Okay. So this person contacts us from Alabama. I had to go to the emergency room because I cut my finger. They only spent 10 minutes with me and charged me $1,500. I have other medical bills. I have other bills to pay. I also have a sister that is my dependent, and I help her with her medical debt. I was unable to pay the amount they want. I don't know when they'll start calling me. I need a lawyer to take care of this. I also have a mental disability. So we're going to call this guy. We're going to be able to help him. We're going to tell him he doesn't need to worry about the bill to the emergency room. We'll talk to him about his sister. Maybe we'll talk to him and his sister together and be able to help them. And he says he has a mental disability. He sent us a perfectly fine email. We deal with seniors. We deal with people. I'm 74. Okay. We understand that as you get older, sometimes our capacities decline. So we're happy to talk with elderly clients and their children. We're happy to talk to kids about their parents. We're happy to talk with you and a good friend. So we're perfectly happy to talk with you about, we want you to understand what we do. But sometimes I'll talk with people and they'll say, I've got this disability, and I'll talk to them for a few minutes. I'll say, you don't have a disability. You're perfectly okay. You understand? And then the nice thing about helps is you can study us out to your heart's content. I know people listen to these videos over and over again, and they may not call us for a year or 2 or 3 years down the road. Finally, when they realize that, yeah, this is what they need to do. So if you're that person, what I don't want is if you're paying this debt and you're sacrificing your basic needs or you're being harassed, no, maybe you need to make a decision sooner than later so you can have a little peace come back into your life and not be worried about these debt collectors bothering you. Because that's the purpose of helps. When you enroll in helps, you turn them over to us. They legally can't call you. They have to communicate with us. Okay? Not a lot of questions today, which is fine. It's okay. We've got plenty to talk about. So this person contacts us from Michigan. His age is 68. He's got $20,000 in unsecured debt. He gets $1,500 Social Security and a $400 pension. His wife gets $1,200 Social Security, but the debt is in his name. They have individual bank account. In other words, he has his bank account, she has her bank account. They're buying a car. Says, I have credit card debt and medical debt. I'm paid up on everything, but I foresee not being able to keep up in the future. We told him what we did. We quoted what the fees were. Sent him some emails about helps and what we did. And it looks like he called back and enrolled. Yeah, it looks like he was going to wait a while, but it looks like after he got our emails and looked at it, he said, "Oh no, I don't have to deal with it." So he called us pretty much immediately after we sent him those emails. So once again, if you have questions, call us. The number is down here, 855-435-7787 or 855-HELPS-US or HELPS-US. So we do. We helps people. So when he talks about some repetition, there's a lot of repetition. But there's always often there's little tweaks on the facts. So something always seems to hit home with people. That's my situation, they say. So this person contacts us from California, ages 64. They get $1,600 in Social Security, and they get $3,800 in VA benefits. And then they get a pension as well. But they have a home they're buying in California. They owe a lot of money on, and the house payment is like $4,000, and he shares that with a relative he lives with. He got $40,000 in debt. See, he gets 38, 48, over $5,000 in income. And that sounds like a lot. You know, in some parts of the country, that's a whole lot. But he lives in California and he's got a $4,000 house payment, which isn't that unusual in some parts of California. So, it kind of depends where you live. What your income is doesn't dictate. How much your income does not dictate whether you can participate in helps. It's just the source of your income. If it's from a protected source like Social Security or a pension or a VA benefit or some form of disability, it's protected. 401k or an IRA. And you can enroll in helps, okay, no matter where you live. Okay. So this person from California goes on to say, yeah, I was gone for a couple of days, and I did get to see my dog. And she remembered me. She remembered my wife. She was very glad to see us. In fact, when we left, she jumped in the car. I had to pull her out and give her back to my son. I don't want to talk about it. I'll start choking up. So I love my dog, and I didn't think I'd get to see her for 2 years, but I was very able to see her after about 7 months. I hope it didn't. I hope it didn't affect her mentality a little bit, but I don't think so. All she cared about after she got to greet us, all she wanted to do is play fetch, which is all she wants to do. Okay, this person from California, I talked about. He's requesting initial information regarding credit card debt. I'm a senior who had to leave employment due to a disability, and it looks like he's raising a grandchild. I'm no longer able to afford my credit card debt. This is the guy from California. Because most of his money is going to pay a house payment. Okay. We emailed him different emails on different topics. On the 29th, he calls us back on the 31st, talked to one of our attorneys. He enrolled 100% disabled veteran who receives VA benefits, Social Security, and CalPERS. They're all directly deposited into his bank account. He also has a savings account at another bank with 1,100 in it. He would transfer those funds to his protected account. See, the account to which his Social Security and VA benefits goes is protected. So if together he got 5,000 in Social Security and VA benefits, that means 10,000 in that bank account is protected. Now the money in the savings in the other bank account wouldn't be technically protected. I mean, if it did get garnished, he could file paperwork to get it released, but it'd be a headache. Now, he wouldn't need to worry about it unless he was sued and there was a risk of garnishment. He did have another bank account, looks like with Navy Federal, with only $6 in it. He's not going to worry about that. He's just not going to use it anymore. He doesn't need to formally close the account. It'll just die a natural death. We emailed an email that explains how his bank accounts are protected from garnishment. They're both on the title to the home. So if he passes away before his nephew, the home will automatically go to the nephew. And if there's a judgment against him, won't matter. That disappears because the home will transfer automatically to the nephew. This is a very nice fellow that is thankful for helps. You won't have to worry about this credit card debt anymore. Now, if he had a credit card with a smaller balance that he wanted to keep, we could tell him he could keep that credit card as long as it's not backed by a bank with whom he got another credit card that he's not going to pay. So, when you enroll in helps, you can keep a credit card. Well, okay, talk about bankruptcy haunting you for 10 years. Well, maybe years ago, but not anymore necessarily. You can usually qualify for a mortgage after 2 years from filing a bankruptcy, and you can rebuild your credit after bankruptcy fairly fast. Okay? There's a lot of misinformation about these topics out there. Okay? People say something or they read something and they just repeat it. And then a lot of the problem is, there's the law. The law says something, but in the real world, it doesn't work that way. The law might say, well, if you've got equity in a car over this amount of money, they could take your car. In other words, maybe let's say you have a car that's worth $5,000 and the exemption for a vehicle in the state where you live is $2,500. Someone gets a judgment against you for a couple $1,000s. Can they come take the car? Well, theoretically, there's a way that they could do that, but they never will do it. Because it's too complicated and it costs them too much money, and they'd have to pay you your exemption of $2,500, and they may never sell it for what enough to pay them. So no, they just don't come after your cars like that. So this person contacts us from Virginia, and they say, I received a message from the Illinois Department of Revenue stating I owe $1,370 in tax. Had to be paid by October 1st, so there would be penalties and interest if not paid in full by November 17th. I thought it was a mistake since I'd never been to Illinois at all. Well, it probably, very likely could have been from a scammer. But it doesn't matter if you owe it to the state or not. If you owe income tax to a state cannot take money from your Social Security or your pension or your retirement. And it's protected in your bank account from a state revenue department, just like it is from a regular creditor who sued you and got a judgment. Um, and he talks about his disability. He goes on to say, my income is just my Social Security. And with that, I pay car insurance, utilities, a little bit for groceries. Car isn't running. He can't see, so his sister takes him wherever he goes. And he's on Medicare and some other debt. He doesn't have anything to worry about. He goes on and on for quite a while about his situation. You know, if you have a problem with debt and you're a senior, you're on limited income, your income is protected, and you have questions, you can call us on the phone. We'll be glad to go over this with you. Don't want you to worry. So Farmow asked, I'm a I'm a helps client. Chase charged off my 3 credit cards. One was 18,000. Will they send me a tax document? 1099-C is what it's called. And will I have to pay taxes? My income is Social Security and pension and side jobs. I extremely doubt it. I'll explain why. Okay. If your income is only Social Security, then you're probably not required to file. You're definitely not required to file tax returns. Now, if you get a little pension, depending on how much you get, you very well not be required to file tax returns. And okay, you can make almost 12,000 or a little bit more in side income on top of your Social Security, and you're still not required to file taxes. So, what is a 1099-C? If you owe debt, uh, the creditor to whom you owe debt can send a form to the IRS called a 1099-C that tells the IRS, hey, this person owes this debt and they never paid us. Therefore, IRS can say, well, okay, since you didn't pay it, that should be income to you, and may need to pay taxes on it. Well, IRS doesn't follow up on that very often, but if they were, you can file what's called a Form 982, especially if you're required to file taxes. And if your debt exceeds your assets, in other words, let's say you have assets of 5,000, a little old car, you're not buying a home, but you have 30,000 in debt. Well, your debt exceeds your assets. You can file that Form 982, and there's a box you click at the beginning. I think it's 1B, saying that you're insolvent. There's no tax. But let's say you were required to file taxes, and you did owe a little bit of taxes. Well, first off, it wouldn't be very much. But if you did, you know, most of our clients can qualify for what's called currently not collectible status. So if you're a single person, income of about $2,500 or a little bit less, or 3,500 a little bit less, or a little bit more, either way, you can often qualify for what's currently not collectible status with IRS, where you don't have to pay the taxes. I did a video with one of my former partners on February 9th, 2 or 3 years ago on YouTube Live that you can go back and look at. Talks about this. We have an email that explains too why you shouldn't worry about your taxes. Okay, farmhouse shouldn't be an issue. Now, if you're not required to file taxes, not an issue. I think we do have a video that talks about how to open Rico on how to open a secured credit card. You can also look up on the internet secured credit cards, and probably a ton of them will pop out. Okay. We also, if you've been part of Helps for more than 90 days, if you want to rebuild your credit, you can contact us. We'll send you an email on 7 steps to a 720 credit score for Helps clients. It's a free program, tells you how to rebuild your credit. And one of the ways to do that is by getting a secured credit card. Okay. You can rebuild your credit within a year and a half to 2 years, up to a 700 plus credit score. Okay. So farmhouse, they may not send you a 1099. We don't hear about our clients getting them too much. Technically, a creditor is required to send them, but often they don't. Okay. So this is an email we got or something. It says from California, they're garnishing my check for old repos. There's a garnishment for a 2004 SUV they all repoed in 2012. They're trying to charge me interest. I have another repo from 2008. I've been paying $250 a month for the second half. I have a wife, kids at home, trying to make everything, not enough money to live. You know, there's not enough money from that video for me to talk to this guy. But if I doubt he's being garnished. Uh, they can't garnish his Social Security, but if he's working, California has a pretty hot. They've got a limit of like $600 a week in take-home pay that's protected from garnishment. But if he really is being garnished, and there really is an issue, we could talk to him um, about possibility about filing a bankruptcy. We don't do that, but we could send it to someone that would. Now, if he's paying $250 a month voluntarily, we might be telling him he doesn't need to do that anymore. But we'll talk to people and give them legal information so they can know where to see. And we don't represent people in court. We don't file bankruptcy for people. We don't need to. Most vast majority of our clients have no need to file bankruptcy. Okay. Person contacts us from Indiana and they say, 6 months ago, we were forced by necessity to suspend payments on our 2 credit cards. The reason for this halt are as follows. My wife is 75 and I am 74, and we have various medical issues. We've also depleted our savings and also the funds from our reverse mortgage. I'm going to sneeze here, maybe. We are now living solely dependent on Social Security and a very small pension. For all of our expenses and needs, earlier this week while scanning YouTube, I came across a video by Senior Living that featured helps. After watching multiple clips, we decided that the assistance you offer was something that we could use. Yeah. So we have a lot of videos on senior living. In fact, I owe Jeff Hoyt a call today. Talk to him about doing a new video or two. So if you want to watch YouTube videos, we have our YouTube channel, but also we have a lot of videos. Some of them have close to 1 million views on senior living. You can go on YouTube, type in senior living, and then down below the financial advice from helps. We got 30 or 40 videos at least with them on their channel. So he's 75 and the wife is 74. They have a reverse mortgage on their home isn't at risk. Their Social Security and their pension is protected. They're not going to need to worry about paying their debt. It's going to be fine, and no one's going to take their home. Person contacts us from Oregon and says, I have about $12,000 in credit card debt. I signed up with American Finance, but I can't afford the almost $300 a month payment. Well, if you signed up with a debt management or debt settlement company, the question I have for you, did they tell you that your income was protected? This guy only have Social Security at $1,200 a month. And with rent and bills and heat, I'm unable to live. I've learned that you might be able to help me with this issue. Yeah. Yeah, he signed up with this debt management company and he's only getting $1,200 Social Security. Did they tell him that his income was protected? He didn't need their help and he could be protected from collector harassment? No, they didn't. Why? Because they want to collect money from him. He's paying them $300 a month. And if it's, they might be taking a sizable portion of that out for their fee. The way they structure their fees, sometimes they get paid near the beginning. And after you've been with them for 6 or 7 months, you realize they're not helping you. They don't care if you quit. They've already been paid a ton of money. 300 times 6 months is $1,800. So this person contacts us from Colorado. I need help and have questions about credit card. My balance is 26,000. Let me tell you what's going on. I have multiple sclerosis, and he used the credit cards to pay for some medical and for rent, food, and other things. 76 years old. I pay $965 a month for credit cards, and I'm tired of not having enough to pay rent and groceries. I also get payday loans to help. Well, okay, he's 76. You probably can get on Medicaid that would help pay for the Medicare for the chemotherapy. Um, but you don't need to pay $965 for the credit cards. If you don't pay them, the credit cards will get cut off, but you'll have $965 in your pocket. They'll pay for rent and groceries and food. You don't have to pay the payday loan. If you've got a payday loan, you can stop paying it. Okay. Um, and we've talked to you about payday loans and how they work. We have, detailed emails that talk about that, but we'll also talk to you in person what you need to do to get rid of a payday loan. Okay. I've run out of my questions, and I had very few questions from you guys today, which is fine. That's okay. I understand. I think I've answered all the questions. I'm going back here and make sure that I answered everything. I hope so. Okay. So we got 3 minutes left. I'm going to call it quits for today. We'll be here tomorrow, same time. If you have a question, be sure and call us. Look at our webpage. You're going to be fine. If you're a helps client and you're worried or concerned, you pick up the phone and you call. Remember, that's the whole purpose of helps. That you can always call us. You don't get charged for a call. You know, our my pet peeve if someone calls and say, "I didn't want to bother you because I know you're busy." Mm. So I got an email from one of our paralegals. Some guy complained because I didn't call him back. If for some reason you need to talk to me specifically and you called and for some reason you feel you're not getting the message, keep calling. I get lots of contacts. Tell my staff that you want it to get through there. They'll see that it gets through. Okay. I don't need to answer everyone's questions. We have other attorneys that help. The paralegals here are very experienced, but I don't want you to be frustrated. You don't need to be frustrated. Okay. So have a good day and we'll talk to you tomorrow. God bless. Bye.